Almost everything labeled fermented on a grocery shelf isn't, not in any way that counts. The vinegar was distilled instead of brewed. The culture was pasteurized out. The sugar was added back in after the fact. You're paying for the flavor of a technique that's thousands of years old, with none of the biology that made it worth doing in the first place. Here are 10 more fermented foods, pulled at random from a longer list, each one hiding something most people walk straight past without a second thought. A few show up in some of the oldest writing humans have ever produced. Let's start with the one everyone assumes is just a condiment. 1. Fermented hot sauce. Calling fermented hot sauce a condiment undersells it so badly, it's almost misleading. Traditional fermented hot sauce is made by lacto-fermenting fresh chili peppers, rather than simply dumping vinegar over them, which combines two genuinely potent, metabolically active ingredients in one bottle: live probiotic cultures and capsaicin, the compound responsible for a pepper's heat. Capsaicin binds to receptors along your gut lining and sets off a small chain reaction, a modest rise in metabolic rate, changes to appetite signaling, stimulation of digestive enzymes, and direct antimicrobial activity against H. pylori, one of the more common drivers of gastric ulcers. Research has shown capsaicin measurably increases thermogenesis, meaning calorie burning, for hours after you eat it. Fermentation intensifies the whole thing further. The process breaks down pepper cell walls, which concentrates the available capsaicin, while simultaneously introducing lactobacillus cultures that support gut diversity. What you end up with is a single source functioning as a probiotic, an anti-inflammatory, a mild antimicrobial, and a metabolism nudge, all in one spoonful. Making it is almost embarrassingly simple. Blend fresh peppers with salt. Let the mixture ferment for 3 to 7 days. Then blend it smooth, if you want a sauce rather than a paste. The result is categorically different from a commercial hot sauce built on distilled vinegar, which offers flavor and heat, but none of the underlying biology. One honest note here. Chili peppers are a new world crop. They didn't exist anywhere in the biblical world, and no one in Scripture ever tasted one. What does carry over is the underlying principle in Genesis, where God tells Noah that everything that lives and moves, along with every green plant, is given to humanity for food. Genesis 9:3, a statement made in sweeping terms, not a narrow regional grocery list. The specific plant is new. The idea that the earth's variety is a gift isn't. This isn't a modern health food invention either. Traditional Mexican, Korean, and West African cuisines have all featured fermented pepper preparations as daily table staples for generations. Not a garnish, but a functional food baked directly into how people ate nearly every meal. A tablespoon or two on food at most meals is a reasonable, sustainable amount. Here's a question worth asking. What did people drink before soda existed? In Eastern Europe, for centuries, the answer was something most Westerners have never even tasted. Kvass. If you've never heard of Kvass, you're not alone, and that's a genuine loss, because what it does for circulation and liver function is worth knowing about. Kvass is a traditional fermented beverage from Russia, Ukraine, and Poland, typically made from either rye bread or beets, and used medicinally across the region for centuries. Bread kvass, the original version, is essentially a very low-alcohol probiotic drink made by fermenting rye bread crusts in water. Beet kvass, made by fermenting raw beets in salted water, is the more potent of the two, medicinally speaking. Beet kvass concentrates betalains, the same red antioxidant pigments found in beets generally, while producing nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for relaxing and widening blood vessels, improving blood flow, and lowering blood pressure. The lactobacillus fermentation on top of that adds probiotic content and increases how well your body actually absorbs the beet's native nutrients. Traditional Eastern European medicine used beet kvass for liver conditions, sluggish digestion, anemia, and poor circulation, long before anyone could explain the mechanism behind why it worked. Modern research into its actual compounds, betaine, betalains, organic acids, live probiotics, backs up essentially every one of those traditional uses. I'll be honest about the taste, because I think honesty serves this one better than hype. It's earthy, mineral, slightly sour, and very much an acquired one. Most people who stick with it past the first week or two stop noticing the taste and start noticing something else instead, namely how they feel. Kvass itself is a Slavic invention, centuries removed from anything in scripture. But bread and drink together, showing up as a sign of provision, is about as old a biblical image as exists. In one psalm, the writer praises God for bringing bread from the earth to sustain the heart, alongside wine to gladden it. Psalm 104, 14-15, grain and liquid, working together, which is more or less exactly what a glass of kvass actually is. A small glass, about 4 ounces, before a meal, is the traditional dose, used roughly the way you'd use a digestive bitters. It's worth making at home if you can, since bottled versions are almost impossible to find outside of specialty Eastern European grocers. And the fermentation itself takes only a few days on a countertop. From a drink that's barely known outside Eastern Europe, let's move to a food that solved one of soy's oldest nutritional problems by fermenting it into something almost unrecognizable. 3. Tempeh. Unfermented soy has a legitimately complicated nutritional reputation, and it's earned. Raw soy contains phytoestrogens, phytic acid, and enzyme inhibitors that interfere with how well your body absorbs protein and minerals. The reason traditional Asian food cultures never ran into the problems some modern research has associated with soy is fairly simple. They fermented it, almost without exception. Tempeh, a traditional Indonesian food, is whole soybeans fermented with rhizopus mold into a dense, firm cake. That fermentation transforms the soybean almost completely. Phytic acid breaks down, dramatically improving how much zinc, iron, and calcium your body can actually absorb. Enzyme inhibitors are neutralized. Phytoestrogens are metabolized into different compounds that current research suggests may be protective against hormone-related cancers rather than a risk factor, as older assumptions once implied. What's left is genuinely impressive on paper. About 30 grams of complete protein per cup. Meaningful. B12 rare for a plant-based food. And prebiotic fiber that feeds your gut bacteria directly. The rhizopus fermentation also produces natural antimicrobial compounds as part of the mold's own self-defense mechanism. Compounds that have shown real antimicrobial activity in lab studies. Tempeh contains all essential amino acids in meaningful amounts, which makes it one of the most complete plant protein sources that's been studied. A genuine meat alternative, rather than a symbolic one. Tempeh is Indonesian, with no direct line back to the biblical world, but its foundation, legumes and water, has one of the more famous case studies in the entire Bible. In the book of Daniel, 4 young men request nothing but vegetables in the King James Version, pulse, meaning legumes and water, instead of the king's rich food and wine, and after 10 days, they're reported as healthier and better nourished than everyone else at the royal table. Daniel 1:12-16. It's essentially the oldest recorded plant protein experiment on record, and by the account we have, it wasn't a close contest. I remember being skeptical the first time someone handed me a slice, expecting something bland or spongy. It's neither. Sliced and pan-fried in coconut oil, marinated and grilled, or crumbled into a stew, it absorbs whatever seasoning you give it and holds a satisfying, slightly chewy texture that most plant proteins simply don't have. Next up is a fermented drink for anyone who loves the idea of kefir but can't tolerate a drop of dairy. 4. Coconut kefir. For anyone who can't tolerate dairy but still wants the probiotic complexity of kefir, coconut kefir isn't a consolation prize. It's its own, genuinely distinct food, with a benefit profile dairy kefir doesn't fully replicate. Made by fermenting coconut milk or coconut water with kefir grains or a powdered starter culture, coconut kefir produces an abundance of probiotics and organic acids, plus something unique to coconut itself: medium-chain fatty acids with their own antimicrobial properties. Caprylic acid and lauric acid, both naturally present in coconut, have documented antifungal and antibacterial effects that work alongside the probiotic cultures rather than against them. That combination matters a great deal for one specific common problem: Candida overgrowth, a frequent driver of digestive dysfunction, brain fog, and skin issues. Research on coconut's fatty acid profile shows particular effectiveness against Candida, and pairing that with probiotic cultures that crowd out pathogenic yeast makes coconut kefir especially useful for people recovering from antibiotic use or chronic yeast-related issues. When made from coconut water specifically, it's also rich in electrolytes, potassium, magnesium, sodium, which makes it unusually restorative after illness or intense physical activity in a way that goes beyond what most fermented foods offer. Coconuts weren't part of the biblical world's landscape, but fruit from a tree, given as sustenance, is about as foundational a biblical image as there is. In Genesis, one of God's very first instructions about food is that every fruit-bearing tree is given to humanity to eat. Genesis 1. Arshijo, a tropical fruit fermented into a drink, is a long way from that garden, geographically, but not really in principle. The flavor is one of the more approachable on this entire list. Slightly sweet, pleasantly tart, easy to drink, even for someone brand new to fermented food. If you've ever wanted to try fermentation but been put off by sharp, sour, or intense flavors, this is probably where I'd point you to start. It also tends to ferment faster than dairy kefir, often finishing in under 24 hours, which makes it a forgiving first project if you're curious about making any of this yourself. A cup a day, as a morning drink or between meals, is the traditional approach. Let's go from a modern dairy-free favorite to the food most people eat almost daily, without realizing what it actually is when it's done right. 5. Sourdough bread. Real sourdough is not the bread sold at most bakeries under that name. Genuine sourdough is leavened exclusively by wild yeast and lactobacillus bacteria, fermented for at least 8 to 12 hours, often 24 to 48, in a process that fundamentally changes the grain before it ever reaches your stomach. During that long fermentation, lactobacillus bacteria consume much of the sugar that would otherwise spike your blood sugar. They produce acids that lower the dough's pH and break down phytic acid. the anti-nutrient in wheat that normally blocks absorption of zinc, iron, and magnesium. They also partially digest the gluten proteins, making them structurally different and noticeably easier for many people to handle. Studies comparing true sourdough to conventional bread show meaningfully lower blood sugar responses, better mineral absorption, and improved digestibility, even in some people who typically react to regular wheat products. Some individuals with non-celiac gluten sensitivity report tolerating long-fermented sourdough without the symptoms. Regular bread triggers for them. Fermented, leavened bread also happens to be one of the more recurring images in the Bible. Leaven, what we'd now recognize as an early sourdough starter, a bit of older fermented dough carried forward to start the next batch, shows up as both symbol and staple throughout Scripture. From the command to eat unleavened bread during Passover Exodus 12, to Jesus comparing the kingdom of heaven to leaven working invisibly through dough, Matthew 13:33, to Paul's warning that a little leaven works its way through the whole batch, 1 Corinthians 5. Lu, Dao Ba. Whatever you make of the symbolism, the practical detail holds up on its own. People have relied on fermentation to leaven bread and thought carefully about what that process meant for thousands of years. This is the bread the ancient world actually ate. Dense, slow, made from whole grains, given real time to work. The industrial loaf in a plastic bag with a 3-week shelf life doesn't belong to the same tradition, whatever the label says. Most commercial sourdough today is conventional bread with a splash of vinegar or sourdough flavoring added for tang, fermented for an hour or two at most. Nowhere near long enough for any of the actual chemistry described above to happen. Made at home with whole grain flour and a maintained starter, sliced thick and toasted, is how it's meant to be eaten. Speaking of ancient staples hiding in plain sight, here's one you've probably already got a bottle of sitting in your pantry, mostly unused. 6. Apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar with the mother is, technically, the tail end of a 2-stage fermentation. Alcoholic fermentation followed by acetic acid fermentation. The same basic process behind all vinegar, except this version keeps its live culture intact instead of filtering and pasteurizing it away. The mother is that colony of bacteria responsible for the fermentation, visible as a cloudy, stringy mass that settles near the bottom of the bottle. Bottles without it have had the functional part quietly removed. Vinegar has an old, recurring presence in the Bible, almost always tied to sourness or hardship. In the book of Ruth, Boaz invites Ruth to dip her bread in the vinegar at mealtime. Ruth 2:14, a small, ordinary kindness in the middle of the harvest. Centuries later, in the Gospels, it's vinegar, sour wine, offered on a sponge, that Jesus is given to drink in his final moments on the cross. Matthew 27:48, John 19:29-30. A detail Psalm 69:21 had described in advance. It's a strange thing to notice, but vinegar shows up at both the smallest, most ordinary meals and the most consequential moment in the entire text. The modern research on ACV, meanwhile, is some of the most practically useful in all of nutritional science. Multiple controlled trials show that 1 to 2 tablespoons before a carbohydrate-heavy meal can reduce the resulting blood sugar spike by somewhere in the range of 15 to 30%. The mechanism involves acetic acid, partially inhibiting the enzymes that break starch down into glucose, plus a modest slowing of gastric emptying. So sugar reaches your bloodstream more gradually. Research also points to improved insulin sensitivity with regular use, along with reductions in fasting glucose and triglycerides. In some trials, ACV also stimulates gastric acid production in people whose stomach acid runs low, a surprisingly common and often undiagnosed condition behind chronic bloating, nutrient malabsorption, and greater susceptibility to pathogens. 1 tablespoon diluted in a glass of water about 15 minutes before a meal is the traditional approach. Never drink it straight. The acidity is hard enough on tooth enamel that it's worth protecting against. This next one has been part of a daily breakfast ritual in Japan for over 1,000 years, and it might be quietly protecting against something you wouldn't expect. 7. Cider Miso. In Japan, where miso has been part of daily meals for over 1,000 years, researchers noticed something worth investigating. Regular miso consumption correlated with lower rates of certain cancers, breast cancer in particular, even after accounting for other dietary factors. What followed was a deep dive into just how biochemically complex this fermented paste actually is. Miso is made by fermenting soybeans, sometimes blended with rice or barley, with koji, a mold called Aspergillus oryzae, for anywhere from a few weeks to several years. The longer-aged versions are darker, more intense, and more concentrated. Through that fermentation, enzymatic activity transforms the soybean almost beyond recognition compared to its raw form. The result is a food unusually rich in digestive enzymes, free amino acids, B vitamins, and isoflavones that fermentation has converted into more bioavailable forms. The process also breaks down much of the phytic acid naturally present in soybeans, which otherwise blocks mineral absorption. Research specifically on miso, not unfermented soy generally, shows it reduces inflammatory markers, supports beneficial gut bacteria, and may offer some protective effect on the stomach lining. That distinction matters because it means the benefit isn't simply soy is healthy, it's specifically tied to what koji fermentation does to the bean over time, which is a very different claim, and a much better supported one. Miso has no roots in the biblical world. It's a distinctly Japanese food, and no amount of creative reading changes that. What does apply is the same instruction Paul gave Timothy centuries later, when certain teachers were telling people to avoid perfectly good food. Everything God created is good, and nothing should be rejected if it's received with thanksgiving. 1 Timothy 4. C. A fermented soybean paste that smells unlike anything in a typical Western kitchen is exactly the kind of food that verse was written to defend. There's one detail traditional cooks always seem to know, long before anyone could explain the enzyme science behind it. Miso soup is never boiled. It's dissolved into hot, but not boiling, dashi broth, specifically to protect the live enzymes fermentation created. That's a rule passed down for generations, largely by feel, and it turns out to be exactly right. A bowl of miso soup, prepared daily, often at breakfast, is the traditional pattern in Japan, a small, quiet ritual that might be doing more than anyone realized for a very long time. Here's a combination I think deserves to be far more famous than it is. 2 of the most potent natural antimicrobials on the planet, fermented together into something your great-grandmother probably kept in the pantry. 8. Fermented garlic and honey. Combine 2 of the most potent antimicrobial foods in nature, raw honey and garlic, and ferment them together. And something genuinely useful happens. The enzymatic environment inside raw honey slowly transforms the garlic. Allicin, garlic's primary active compound, becomes more stable and more bioavailable. Honey's own antimicrobial compounds concentrate further, and the natural bacteria present on both ingredients drive a slow fermentation over several weeks that generates additional enzymes and bioactive compounds neither food fully had on its own. Both ingredients carry serious research behind them individually. Clinical studies on garlic show reduced frequency of colds and upper respiratory infections, lower blood pressure, reduced LDL cholesterol, inhibited platelet aggregation, and broad antimicrobial activity. Raw honey research confirms antibacterial effects against antibiotic-resistant strains, antiviral properties, and accelerated wound healing. Both foods, notably, are old enough to appear repeatedly throughout the Bible. Garlic is among the foods the Israelites specifically missed from Egypt while wandering the wilderness. Numbers 11:5. And honey is woven through the text. So often it becomes a kind of running symbol for abundance itself. The phrase, "a land flowing with milk and honey," appears more than 20 times across the Old Testament. Samson famously scoops wild honey from a lion's carcass, Judges 14:8-9. And Jonathan risks his own father's anger for a taste of wild honey found in a forest. During battle 1 Samuel 14:27. Whatever else you take from those stories, they confirm honey wasn't a luxury item back then. It was valuable enough to remember and write down centuries later. Made by submerging whole peeled garlic cloves in raw honey for 4 to 8 weeks, the fermented cloves mellow into something spreadable, while the honey becomes deeply infused with garlic's active compounds. 1 to 3 cloves daily, with a teaspoon of the honey, is the traditional approach during cold and flu season, a home remedy that predates modern medicine by a very long way and still holds up reasonably well under it. Next, a fermented food so universal that nearly every culture on Earth has its own version, but almost nobody eats the real one anymore. 9. Traditional yogurt. Here's a distinction that changes how you should think about an entire supermarket aisle. The yogurt eaten across the ancient world, strained, full-fat, made from whole milk, fermented for 12 to 24 hours, bears almost no resemblance to the fruit-flavored, low-fat, heat-treated product filling most refrigerators today. Real yogurt, cultured with Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus, and fermented long enough for those cultures to genuinely multiply, has documented effects on digestion, immune response, and resistance to pathogens. Randomized trials show it shortens the duration of infectious diarrhea, supports recovery after a course of antibiotics, and reduces the risk of antibiotic-associated infection by helping repopulate gut flora that antibiotics disrupt. Fat matters here too, more than most people assume. Full-fat fermented dairy contains conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, a fatty acid with documented anti-inflammatory and body composition effects. Stripping the fat to make light yogurt removes the exact compound that made the food metabolically useful in the first place, which means a lot of diet yogurt on shelves today is, ironically, the least functional version of the food available. This is fairly close to what Abraham would have served. In Genesis, when 3 unexpected visitors arrive at his tent, curds and milk are among the first things he sets in front of them, alongside prepared meat. Genesis 18:8. Simple fermented dairy offered as an act of hospitality, the same basic food still served in a similar way across parts of the world today. The Greek and Middle Eastern practice of straining yogurt into labneh, a thick, concentrated form, increases both the protein and the probiotic density per serving, and it's genuinely worth trying if you've never had it. A cup daily, plain and full fat, is the traditional amount, eaten with olive oil and herbs. The way it was originally meant to be eaten, it stops tasting like a diet food and starts tasting like an actual meal. Let's end with something that ties almost every tradition on earth together. Proof that medicine and food used to be the exact same word. 10. Fermented herbal tonics. This is where traditional medicine and fermentation science overlap in the most interesting way of anything on this list. Across nearly every traditional medicine system, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, European folk, herbalism, Native American plant medicine, there's a category of preparation that combines medicinal herbs with fermentation, roots, leaves, and botanicals, lacto-fermented or fermented with honey, into something that delivers a plant's active compounds in a fundamentally different way than a simple tea or tincture would. The biochemistry behind why this matters is fairly straightforward. Fermentation pre-digests complex plant compounds, breaking large polyphenols down into smaller, more bioavailable metabolites. It also creates entirely new compounds through bacterial transformation that weren't present in the original plant at all. And it delivers all of that alongside probiotics that support the exact gut environment those compounds need in order to be absorbed properly. Fermented elderberry tonics, turmeric, kvass, and lacto-fermented preparations combining astragalus and ginger are all real traditional medicines backed by both generations of accumulated use and a growing body of modern research. Turmeric is a good example of the principle in action. Curcumin, its primary active compound, is famously poorly absorbed on its own, but its bioavailability improves substantially when it's delivered in a fermented, slightly fatty medium. Modern science, in this case, is mostly just confirming what traditional herbalists already understood through generations of trial and observation. Small doses, 2 to 4 ounces daily, is the traditional pattern. The variety of herbs used means a variety of compounds reaching your gut microbiome all at once, which is really just personalized botanical medicine, built long before that phrase ever existed. You don't need a prescription for this one. You need a jar, some dried herbs, salt water, and patience. 10 more foods, and the same pattern keeps showing up. Something old, something that looks unremarkable, a jar, a bottle, a paste, quietly doing more work than its appearance suggests. What strikes me most, working through a list like this, is how much of it was never actually lost. It didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because pasteurization, shelf stability, and mass production were easier to scale than fermentation ever was. The biology didn't change. We just, collectively, stopped choosing it in favor of convenience. That's really the only thing worth taking away here. Quality is the whole game. A vinegar-based hot sauce and a fermented one look nearly identical sitting on a shelf and do almost nothing alike once they're inside your body. Sourdough from a real starter and sourdough flavored with a splash of vinegar will fool almost anyone by taste alone. The difference is rarely printed on the label in bold letters. You have to know what you're actually looking for. And now, at least for these 10, you do. There's also something worth sitting with in how many of these foods carry a written history stretching back thousands of years, long before anyone had a microscope to explain why they worked. That's not proof of anything on its own, but it's a reason to take the tradition seriously enough to actually test it for yourself. So, a small challenge, same as always. Pick one food from this list, whichever one surprised you most while reading, and actually try it this week. Not because any single food fixes anything on its own, because it doesn't, but because noticing how your own body responds to real, living food is worth more than reading about it ever will be. Thanks for watching all the way through. Drop a comment and tell me which one you're trying first, or which one you'd never touch. Even after all this, I'd genuinely love to know. I'll see you in the next video.